Good evening, everyone. At this time, I'd like to call the Cromwell Board of Education meeting to order at 7 p.m. Alessandra, would you take roll call? Here. Don't believe so. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to approval of our agenda, additions, deletions, and chair's review. So tonight we have some celebrating our faculty and staff. We will also be looking at the program of study for the high school, and an overview of our science and reading curriculum, legislation, and some other things, obviously, that are some updates. And before we approve the agenda, I do have some additions. So I'd like to add, first on the agenda, executive session for the purpose of discussing records of strategy from the teachers' contract negotiations. That would be for our executive session portion. And the second item is to discuss and take possible action on the teacher's successor contract for the 2023 through 2026 year. And third, I'm just changing some wording. We do have an action already listed, not an action, but we have verbiage, executive session for the purpose of discussion concerning, discussing the options available and possible action is what I'm adding, the and possible action to the board regarding its transportation agreement in executive session. So that's regarding DATCO. So those three items would need to be added. Is there a motion to add those to the agenda? There were three. So the first one was the teachers' executive session for the purpose of discussing records of strategy from the teachers' contract negotiations. And then the second part of that, it's listed separately, but discuss and take possible action on the teacher's successor contract for the 2023-2026 year. And then the third was just to add the words possible action on the DATCO piece. I know that's a lot. Thank you. Is there a second? Dipti, all in favor? Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries, and the agenda is approved with those additions. Next on our agenda, we're celebrating our faculty and staff, and tonight we have Mrs. DeTuno up here from Edna C. Stevens to highlight Terry Farrar.
Good evening, everyone. It is with great honor and pleasure for me to recognize an ECS staff member tonight for celebration of staff. And here with me is Terry Farrar, and she is a science instructor at Edna Stevens School for our K-2 students. Words that describe Terry. She is positive all the time. Extremely helpful to all. She loves to teach science, has an outstanding work ethic, and is committed to the students at ECS. Our students love Mrs. Farrar. They love to attend her science classes. She increases students' knowledge and skills and truly enhances their attitudes towards science. Her science lessons are exciting and relevant. Her expertise in making connections among science and the students' world and the community is amazing. Mrs. Farrar encourages science inquiry, problem solving into her lessons, but most importantly, she has the ability to impact all of her students. When Mrs. Farrar is not teaching, you can find her loading reading carts, making copies, searching for materials for the teachers, et cetera, et cetera. That goes on and on. So at ECS, we are very lucky to have her, and I would like to congratulate her on this special recognition.
Thank you so much for being here tonight, Terry. I know you love attention. But I know Terry personally, and I mean, talk about work ethic and volunteer extraordinaire. She's done so much for our schools, whether you know her or not. She's been helping all along from just the goodness of her heart, I think, a lot of times. So I'm so happy that she's here teaching science. Kids love science, and they're going to be getting ready for a STEM program, so it's perfect. So congratulations. Anybody have any other comments?
Of course, Mrs. Farrar is amazing. We are so lucky, and I say that truly. We are so lucky. When I first got here, hearing about everything she did, I didn't realize that she was actually not technically on staff. I'm like, what do you mean? We're not paying this lady anything. We are blessed, and yes, we figured that out a little bit, even though it's not everything that she's worth, because she is worth so much. But everything that Mrs. DeTuno said about you, Terry, is true and more. I feel like when I go to ECS, I always see Mrs. Farrar. She's always running around doing something. But most importantly, every single kid is so excited to see her, which means she is making a huge impact on them and in science. And we all know it is not easy to teach science, period, and especially to elementary students. It's so important to get them excited about it, and you do all of that and more for all of us. So thank you so much, Terry, from all of us. We are incredibly grateful, and I know the kids are too.
Thank you very much. I just want to say, honestly, thank you to you and to Mrs. DeTuno for giving me the opportunity to do this. I'm not a certified teacher, I'm a scientist. I have a background in biology, chemistry, physics, astronomy, you name it, I've got my hands in it some way. And I have taught before, I taught at the college level, but teaching our little guys is something quite different. I'm really quite proud of how the science program has come along, so I'm excited to continue doing that. And keep in mind that this generation of kids, our kindergartners, first graders, second graders, they're the ones that are going to be going to Mars. Think about that. So this is the kind of thing that I like to talk to them about, things that are going on right now. And as my shirt says, some people only dream of meeting their favorite scientists. I get to teach mine. And the more hands-on things we can do, the more engaged they are. And I just like getting dirty with them. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy coming to school every day, so thank you for letting me do this.
And thank you. And next, we also have celebrating our students at ECS. So if you'd like to introduce your student you're celebrating.
I have to say, I was so excited about this. And the student that we recognized has been practicing and practicing, but he went home sick today.
Oh.
But you are going to see him because we videotaped him, and you'll see him at the end of my speech. But when I was asked to select a student for the celebration of student recognition, Hassan Syed's name came to mind immediately. And when I shared my thoughts with his former teachers, they could not agree more. Hassan entered ECS in kindergarten. The school experience was a whole new world for him. Even more, not knowing English. But that never held him back. His persistence and passion for learning and desire to work hard towards success is proof today. His growth and development over the past 2 years, both socially and academically, have been amazing to see, and he continues to make us proud at ECS. Last month, he was a presenter at the Veterans Assembly. He stood there proud and recited beautifully in front of over 200 people. Hassan's second grade teacher stated that Hassan has grown so much because of his love for school and learning. And when he encounters challenges, he faces them with resilience and overcomes his fears. He is respectful and kind to his classmates and is always there to lend a helping hand. Now, Hassan brings forth such a positive light at ECS. So on behalf of his teachers, Mrs. Logodiscio in kindergarten, Mrs. Sisti in grade 1, Ms. Gardino in grade 2, and Mrs. Ramsey, his ELL teacher, we are so proud to recognize him for this special award. And so now I'm going to share with you.
Good evening. My name is Hassan Sayed. I am a second grade student. My favorite thing to do at school is learning. Miss Ramsey, my ELL teacher, helps me to learn English. I wrote and said words every day until I got the hang of it. Now I can communicate with my dad and friends. I am teaching my mom and sister how to speak English. I like being at Anna Stevens School. Thank you and have a good night.
I would have never guessed he was
Good.
ELL. He's very fluent. Thank you so much for highlighting Hassan. He's looks like he's come a long way, and all thanks to all of his teachers and his ELL teacher. We're very proud of him. Thank you. All right, correspondence. Do you have any tonight?
I do. We received a letter from Middlesex Health, and it was to Cromwell High School, the boys and girls soccer team. They raised $1,565 to support the Cancer Center at Middlesex Health, and they just wanted to thank us for making sure that we continue to remember people who are in need. So they're very thankful, and we have this for our tax purposes, so I just wanted to let you know how awesome. That's pretty great. We had Pajama Day. We don't know how much we've raised yet officially. We're still counting, so that'll be great too. This is a very exciting letter that we received from the Department of Administrative Services of School Construction and Grants and Review. So it's OSC, I'll remember this one day, G&R. And it's in regards to the middle school. They visited our site. They visually inspected approximately 29.13 acres of land, and including the building and the fields owned by the LEA, which is us, for use as a location for a new Cromwell Middle School, in conjunction with the law, and I won't read all those laws to you. Site analysis and additional information provided, the site appears to be suitable for the intended purpose. This letter constitutes approval of the site by this department as required under Connecticut Statute 10-286D. And 10-291 and 292, amended Title 10, Education Culture Section -10287, and regulations for Connecticut state agencies. So basically, we have met all requirements, and the site and project have not yet been authorized for state grant yet, so that is in the process, hopefully by the end of the month. But we are well on its way. So this was written by Douglas Rogers, the director of the Office of Construction Grants and Review. So I wanted to just fill you in on this great news because everyone has worked so incredibly hard on this. The building committee, the town, the educators, and then all of you. So it's great news.
One obstacle overcome.
Yeah, I know.
And was that all for correspondence?
That's it.
Okay. Public comments. Before I read the rules for public comments, is there anyone who would like to make a public comment? Okay. I saw Jessica first, and so you can come on up to the podium, state your name and address. Oh, and I will read the rules. I know you've heard them before, but sorry. Individuals are welcome to address the Board of Education for up to 3 minutes during the public comment portions of the meeting, but board members will not generally engage in dialogue. The Board of Education chair may, at his or her discretion, extend the time for public comments. Speakers must come to the podium and share your name and address. To facilitate efficient sharing of your comments, we encourage you to share any comments you may have about instruction, discipline, or learning materials first with your student's teacher, then principal, and followed by the superintendent, before bringing the comments to the Board of Education. However, if you do not believe your comments have been addressed appropriately, or if you believe they should be shared with the board for any other reason, please feel free to do so. Any complaints or concerns about individual Cromwell Board of Education employees should be directed to the superintendent and Board of Ed in writing, rather than in public comments at Board of Education meetings. All comments must not include personal attacks, and comments cannot be discourteous, threatening, vulgar, or otherwise inappropriate. The board chairperson may, at his or her discretion, curtail any public comments or terminate any such individual's privilege of address at any time if they violate any of these rules, violate reasonable standards of decorum, are boisterous, or are repetitious. The Board of Ed reserves the right to limit public comments to particular topics. And the Cromwell Board of Education values the well-being of our students and families. Those electing to make public comments at a Cromwell Board of Education meeting are strongly discouraged from sharing identifiable information of their children in such comments, including but not limited to name, age, and learning ability, and are reminded that any comments made during a Cromwell Board of Education meeting may become a permanent matter of public record that may be accessible by individuals in the future. As such, any person making public comments during a Cromwell Board of Education meeting is solely responsible for the information they choose to share. We kindly ask that you consider the privacy of your family and your children while making comments. Okay.
Thank you. First, I also want to commend Mrs. Farrar. I know there are a couple kids in the audience whose eyes lit up when she entered the room, but that's not why I'm here. So, hello, everybody. My name is Jessica Lamb. My pronouns are she, her, and I live at 12 High Ridge Road. I'm here this evening to again support an equitable, inclusive, and a curriculum that celebrates diversity. So last month I stood here before you to support a book that was being taught in kindergarten that challenged gender stereotypes. And while there are many dimensions of diversity, tonight I'm actually here to be more specifically supporting an LGBTQ curriculum as well. So as a parent, I know that it's not a matter of if, but when our children are faced with LGBTQ topics in life. Whether it's a family member who identifies as LGBTQ, a friend, it could be content that they're seeing on TV or somewhere in their community, or who knows, maybe even our own children are identifying as LGBTQ themselves. So when they encounter these topics, how they react, if they find out a friend of theirs is coming out to them, how they react in that moment is so important to the well-being of the student or family member who's LGBTQ. So to me, I believe that this is a learned behavior, and it's important that we expose our kids to lots of different topics in schools. Personally, I want my kids to be accepting, perhaps even matter of fact when the situation arises, and even be a safe zone for their peers. Since I do believe this is a learned behavior, how you react in that moment, I need help. As a parent, I need help. They say it takes a village to raise a child. I need help from my village. So, for example, how should I answer questions about same-gender displays of affection on TV? Did you know in the movie Star Wars, there are actually situations like that? And we sat in the movie theater and, you wonder, okay, how am I going to respond to this? There's a new Disney movie called Lightyear, where there's similar situations. How about when we're sitting and watching Jeopardy and there's transgender contestants who, by the way, won a lot of games? How about when I sit and watch Wednesday with my teenager and there are two moms that show up to visit one of the students? I won't spoil it if you haven't seen the show. And then ultimately where I really do need help, perhaps from our language arts department, is how do I unteach that they, them, and their are not necessarily just plural pronouns. They're actually singular too. So there's so many topics that and questions that parents and allies need to engage in, and I really implore our school to continue the curriculum that you've already started, which is why, again, I just want to reinforce how much I support the diverse, equitable, and inclusive curriculum in our school system. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Is the mic on? Is there a red light?
There we go. Hi. First of all, I sent an email as well, and I did notice when I was reading it over that one little section got put in the wrong place because Google does that sometimes. So go with what I'm saying, not what I wrote.
Okay.
My name is Heidi Venetianer. I live at 34 Hemlock Court. I have a child with special needs who's in the 6th grade at Cromwell Middle School. Being a professional in the education field, I understand the need for professional development. Most school districts that I know of have a half day of school once a month or schedule their professional development after school hours. According to the proposed schedule for the 2023-2024 school year, it looks as if half days are being scheduled twice monthly. For children at the elementary school level at ECS and WIS, children have the option to pay to stay at school at the Kids Corner. The children at CMS and Cromwell High School do not have this option. Also, most daycare centers do not accept children older than 11 or 12 years of age. Most middle and high school students are mature enough to be left at home for a short period of time, but there is a small population of special needs children who are not. When both parents are working, or in the case of single-parent households, the only parent is working, there are very few options available. I am strongly requesting that either these early dismissal days be removed or else offer some sort of program for special needs children so they can stay at school for a full day. I'd be more than happy to work with the administration to develop a program that would suit the needs of this population. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments tonight? Okay, seeing none, I do have two public comments that were sent in via email. One was from Cassandra Thompson, and one was actually from the prior meeting, Stephen Heisman. He'd like us to include his written letter in the meeting minutes for tonight. So those will be included in the meeting minutes. And next we'll move on to reports from student representatives. Do you want to start at the middle school? Jack?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Student Council hosted a Spirit Week and a cleaning supply drive from November 28th to December 2nd. Students and staff were asked to donate cleaning supplies such as shampoo, conditioner, soap, paper, towels, toilet paper, and toothpaste to help those in need in our community. These Spirit Days were dressed as your favorite holiday day, hat day, sports day, tourist day, and twin day. CMS Student Council was able to donate about 200 items to the Cromwell Food Pantry. Each holiday season, the Mandigo family organizes a toy drive to support the children getting treatment at Connecticut Children's Medical Center. This year, students and staff were able to contribute and collect under 200 toys. On December 9th, CMS participated in the PJ for Kids Day. Students and staff were encouraged to wear PJs and additionally donate $1 to support the brave kids at the Connecticut Children's who are battling cancer. The CMS community was able to raise $485. The boys and the girls basketball season are underway. The girls team is coached by Mrs. Middlebrooks and Dr. Bosworth, and the boys team is coached by Mr. LeMay. The boys basketball team played East Hampton and Berlin and won both games. The girls are one-on-one and off to a great start.
All right, thank you very much. Nice job. Does anyone have any questions for Jack? All right, Catherine, sure.
Jack, how did the first day of the new schedule go today?
Tomorrow.
It's tomorrow?
I just found out it's tomorrow.
Oh,
For
you
my
told me it
kids.
was today.
Is that correct?
It's tomorrow it starts?
Yeah.
Yeah,
For Wednesday.
Okay.
It's, all 8 periods and advisory.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you have to report next month then.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jack.
All right. Who wants to start? Olivia?
Yeah.
For the high school? Okay.
So for general announcements, on Friday, December 9th, Cromwell High School participated in the CCMC PJ Day. Students and staff donated $1 to support Connecticut Children's Hospital. CHS is working with CREC on leadership and development. They met with CHS students to discuss a wide array of topics such as inclusion, kindness, empathy, and the importance of making sure everyone feels safe and respected within our community. Carbon Club is selling both honey and maple syrup to raise money. The honey and maple syrup come from homes of Mr. Harder and Mr. Anderson, 2 high school teachers. And Kayak Club is decorating liquor bags with positive messages for a safe holiday season.
For the sports, the winter season is coming to a start. The girls' basketball team had a game yesterday and they won. The boys' basketball team had a scrimmage against Rocky Hill on December the 8th. The boys' hockey team had a game against Concord on December the 14th. The girls' hockey team had a game against Haddam Coop on Wednesday the 14th. And the wrestling team had a game against Middletown on December the 14th. And indoor track and field girls and boys team have a scrimmage currently.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions for our high school representatives? Okay. Next, moving on to reports of liaisons from the Town Council, Board of Finance. I don't believe either one of those are here, so Cromwell Middle School Building Committee and Fields Committee. The Building Committee did include a report. It's reference A in your packets. Hopefully you've had a chance to look it over. It shows the schematics and where we are with everything. It does say we're looking forward to breaking ground in 2023, so hopefully we can stay on track with that. And the chairperson, Rosanna Glenn, did offer if we want to have her come to a meeting and give more details about where they are with the plans. She's willing to do that at any point. I mentioned maybe January would be a good time, but just let me know if anyone would like that. And Fields Committee, Catherine, do you have an update for the Fields Committee?
There's not a lot. We had a meeting last week. We set our meeting schedule for the next few months. The town council approved a few items. One, they approved the Little League lights at one of the fields right next to the middle school, and they funded our RFQ for our assessment of the fields and the high school complex. So there's a few other items that we're looking into, but there's a whole process. It's very similar to the middle school process where it's kind of a little bit out of our hands right now, and then it'll come back to us because they have to get all the bids to come in for us to look at where we want to go forward. But I think that's about it. Does any other committee member have anything? No? Okay. So yeah, we're not a whole lot happening right now. Hopefully it'll pick up more after the first of the year.
Okay, just go back to the RFQ. You said that that town council approved.
They approved, and the Board of Finance, the Board of Finance approved the Little League lights and the RFQ. So we have the funding to be able to look at an assessment of what needs to be done in order to get those fields.
A dollar amount tied to that?
200,000. It's like a two-pronged project. 100,000 is going to look at drainage, and another 100,000 is to look at the actual fields in the whole complex at the high school. So it's, if you want to loop in tennis courts, and it will assess the baseball and softball fields and the practice fields that are backed up to ECS. So, and there's other practice fields that are right along the parking lot, because we're not quite sure how this is all going to fall out with the size that we need and parking and all that other stuff. So that's.
Okay. And did they go over the timeline for the RFQ?
No.
No. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Catherine? All right. Presentations and reports of administration. The 2022-2023 budget update, reference B in your packs. And do we have Ms. Burke here this evening? Did I forget something? Happens every time. Oh, how could I forget the superintendent's update? I look forward to it. I do. Okay.
I try to
Sorry.
keep it short. There's so much going on, and obviously I give you the weekly updates. But just quickly, thank you to our football team and to our football coaches, to Kelly Maher, our athletic director, our principal, our assistant principal, Mr. Kuckle, Ms. Bingington. It's wonderful to make playoffs, but it's a lot of work. And our boys did a phenomenal job this year. We didn't win the championship. However, they took us pretty far, and we're very proud of them. We did have a last-minute situation because of weather. We had to change fields. Coach Maher, Mrs. Maher, Athletic Director Maher. She just really steps it up to the plate and got everything figured out between Friday and Sunday and changed the venue and made everything happen as if it was completely, there were no problems, and you wouldn't think there were any problems, except there were a lot of them, but she makes it seem so seamless all the time. So a huge shout out to Kelly for just being who she is and really caring about the kids. So thank you to Miss Maher all the time. She's actually as nice as she seems. And competent. So also we had our first snowstorm, and welcome Melinda St. John to our first snowstorm. She did an excellent job. Our team, our cleanup team, our communication with the town as far as who's cleaning what and doing what at what specific time. We were minute to minute, starting pretty much at 4:15 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, and we were one of the districts that actually got our kids to school on time, and we try to do that. Obviously, safety is first, and when we think we can be safe as little disruption to the kids' school day and then to the family's school day, because then everyone has to rearrange their schedules. So it went beautifully, and the roads were great. And congratulations to Melinda for surviving her first snow day. We weren't too tired, not at all. And then and just quickly, the building committee, we visited North Haven Middle School, and myself and Mrs. Cocciola went along, and it was a treat for us because that's where we both started our careers as teachers. So it was like a blast from the past, and we found a lot of, first of all, it was so exciting to see a building that you saw in the same shape as our middle school is right now, and to see where it's gone. Mrs. Cocciola and I were so excited because we care, obviously, the kids about North Haven. We worked there for years, and it's just impacted them so beautifully. Now, are there things we can learn from and make sure we don't make those same mistakes? Absolutely, and we talked about a lot of that. But just to see a community rally together to do something for kids, that's just so exciting, was pretty awesome. And just seeing the teachers that we both know and their names on the doors, and the school secretaries, and it was just really cool. And Ann and I think we're more excited than everybody. We just focus and look at the building. But it was really delightful, and Perkins and Eastman was their architect, and they are also our architect. So we got to talk about a lot of the same things that we saw there that we want to make sure we don't see. That was a rebuild. We are completely, that was a renovate. We are completely rebuilding. So we won't run into some of those issues. Unbelievable to our building committee. I really cannot say enough about these people. They have given up such a huge part of their life. They are showing up to visits and asking questions and keeping notes. Honestly, I think they could take this show on the road when we're done and start building schools for people. They're just amazing. So thank you to all of them. And that's pretty much my update. Unless you have any questions for me, there's just so much going on right now in classrooms and getting prepared for the winter break. The big thing that Ann will talk a little bit about is letting you know where we are right now in the budget, Ann Burke. And it's not, it's looking bleak already, so we are in a freeze. I say every year it is what it is, and we got what we asked for, and there are just so many unanticipated expenses that there really is not much we can do about it. And inflation has impacted every area that we're trying to operate, every single thing that we're trying to do. So we are pretty much frozen, which means emergencies, things that, kid safety and all of that obviously gets taken care of, and some of the other things have to wait a little bit until we see where we're at. And as we are preparing, we've had about 4 of our meetings with principals and with directors. We expect a large increase, and you're going to hear a little bit about why from Dr. McLean regarding reading legislation that we, between teachers unions and administrators unions and Connecticut Association of Superintendents, are all pushing back to the State Department of Education, but I'm not so sure as to where we're going to get. And this is a very, very, very costly unfunded mandate that has to be put into place. And we only have 1 year for a waiver, but that doesn't help us, a financial hardship waiver, because we still have to put it into next year's budget because we have to train our staff to actually be able to do it the following year, and they can't do it without the materials. So you'll hear from Dr. McLean a little bit more about that. shortly. So I just want to prepare you, and I know it's tough times for everyone, and we are no exemption to that rule. We are looking at some hefty increases, and that's it.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Okay. So now we'll move on to the 2022-2023 budget update, reference B, with Ms. Burke.
Good evening, everyone. I don't have too much to add. Dr. Macri summed it up quite nicely, but I did provide for you our July through November numbers and just a brief memo, and I have recommended a budget freeze. I think we need to, at this point, really just spend time analyzing purchase orders that we have open. What is exactly that we need right now to do what we need to do. It's always disappointing when your expenses don't meet your budget, but we do our budget early, and a lot of things change after we have approved the budget, and this year is no exception. If you have any questions pertaining to anything on the report that I provided, I'd be happy to try to answer them for you.
Oh, Jen, go ahead.
I was just curious about the salaries. Why such a difference with the salaries?
Part of the reason with the non-certified is that we were in the middle of negotiating the custodian agreement. So at the time we did the budget, we hadn't finished that negotiation. We have had to hire some additional support staff for special education. And as far as the certified salaries go, when we do have people leave and we have new people come in, sometimes the hiring rates don't match what we had in the person that left or what we had anticipated. So there's just some slight variances in those categories due to those reasons.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you. Next, we have old business, discussion and possible action, school calendar 2022-2023, references C and D in your packets. We talked about this at the last meeting and decided to come back to the table and see what we can do to make some changes. So, Dr. Macri, did you want to explain the changes?
Sure. I will call Dr. McLean up as well. Dr. McLean and myself, Lisa and Alessandra worked very hard on looking at these dates and trying to take your suggestion, which we really like, by the way, but there are pros and cons, as you just heard, to changing to a half-day early release and trying to get the same amount of hours of PD. And a lot of people, it's very difficult for people to understand, unless you're in the education world, of the need for professional development. One, things change all the time. Two, everyone thinks we're done with COVID, and we are, except the repercussions of it right, we're not really, continue to linger and impact our students, and will for a very long time, their social emotional well-being and their academic learning, which requires our teachers to still continue to learn how to teach differently. Differentiation has been along for a very long time. Intervention, acceleration has been around for a very long time. However, in order to do that well, we really don't have the luxury of not doing that well right now. We have a lot of catching up to do. We also have talked to you a lot about curriculum writing and things that we need to change, and just some of our instructional strategies in Cromwell in general. We've made huge improvements. We still have a long way to go, but we can't expect our teachers to continue to grow and do what we need them to do without the amount of time. They only have so much time, and this is really hard for people to understand, but they are with our children all the other times. So we could give PD to any other, a lot of other careers, people in careers, and they leave their desks, and the work is there when they get there. But no, we can't leave the kids alone, and that's huge. if we expect the best from our teachers, which I do, and from our administrators, which I do, and I know you do too, then we have to invest in them. And that hasn't necessarily happened. And so we need this time, and we need it even more so with a reading program that we believe is coming down the pike without us being able to do anything. So between the financial piece and the instructional piece of teaching brain-based reading, which we've been doing anyway, but there are some holes to fill. We need this time. So it's a no-win situation, honestly, and I know that. We all understand that. So with that being said, the calendar on the left of your packet is the one with the 1 hour. The calendar on your right is the half-hour day release. And what we did, and Dr. McLean, if you want to go in and you can explain what we did and why some of them are half-day Fridays, we tried to look at vacation schedules and things, but go ahead.
So we took exactly the same amount of hours. On a half day, there are teachers that don't get a lunch period, so they would have to have their lunch period after the students dismiss. So when we put all of the hours together, both of those calendars have the same amount of hours. So there's less days where students are released early, but in most cases there are 2 half days a month to cover those 4 hours of professional development that we have. In some cases we tried to, like before the February break, I think it was Dr. Macri, I'm not looking at the sheet, we tried to put that half day there so then parents could extend a vacation if they were going away for that long weekend. So we tried to be smart about the placement of them. There are pros and cons. I, as an educator, having this chunk of time is invaluable. But it also means finding childcare for some people for a half a day too. So,
Lori.
Okay, so just bear with me because I just want to go through. I went through this today. So being mindful of our conversation was that we would keep the same amount of time,
exact same
just
amount of time.
instead of doing the hour, just chunk it. Okay, so I'm comparing the 2 calendars, and I counted, there was 25 purple days, so 25 days on the left-hand calendar that we would have gotten out at 1 hour early. So if you move over to the other count, so now we went from 4 days that were just half days to 12. So I guess my question is this.
Because we had those 4 days as well, right?
Right. So
already.
that's 8 hours addition, 8 half days.
Right.
So, okay, so if we had 25 days where we got out an hour early, that's 25 hours of PD time. But if you go over, if we added 8 half days, I get the math just isn't matching up for me. I was just trying to understand it because if we added 8 half days.
In a half day, there's about 2 hours
that's
of
what I
professional
wanted to
development
know.
time.
So there's 2 hours, that's it?
Because
on a half day?
they have to have their lunch period after. It's not built into the day.
Okay.
So
that was my
that's
question.
the-
So
yeah,
I was
that's the
thinking like
caveat
they got out
is-
at 11:30 and then the 2:25.
Right,
so
and 11:30, and then there's dismissal, and then they have their lunch, and really by the time it's 2 hours.
Okay, so that would be about 24, 25 hours then. So, right. Okay, that's what I was wondering because the math
Yeah.
wasn't. Gotcha. So it's
Yep.
the lunch. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
But it's also 3 hours for the kids. Right? They're leaving at, let's say, Cromwell High School. They're leaving, middle school, 11:30. So they're missing more time in this calendar than they are in this calendar.
Yes, they are.
So.
Yeah.
Which is why I never thought you guys ever
Right.
would want to have this, but I was thrilled to do it because
Right. I mean,
for all
like I was
intents and
saying, for
purposes,
us,
it makes more
yes,
sense.
it makes sense. But there is
we have to still
there
make sure
is
teachers get their lunch.
time that's lost.
I didn't mean to talk out of order.
No.
Is it the lunch that they're?
When you have an early release, a 1 hour early release, teachers' lunch is built into the day with this with the student lunch, you can build it all in.
Okay.
When you release half day, it's impossible to build in a lunch during that time. So, especially for secondary.
Yeah, for secondary.
For secondary. So we have to provide a lunch, one, because we want our teachers to eat, and two, it's a duty-free lunch, and contractually they're, in their contract, we're required to do. So in order to make up that time, we have to put it somewhere. So we put it at the end of the day. They have their lunch, and then they
After
start their
dismissal,
professional
like they have
development.
bus duty and then lunch, and then they come to professional development. So,
So
it
that's,
does.
That's like an
account.
8-hour loss of student time then for the year.
Yeah.
Yes. If we were to go to a half-day schedule.
Then there's no way around that. I don't think we knew that when we were talking about.
Go ahead.
How did it work before COVID then? Because we didn't have these hour release before. Did we have less?
We did at
PD
the high
time?
school.
We did. We
No,
had
I
less
mean
PD
less
time
than
at the
this-
elementary.
okay.
Yeah, we did have.
In Cromwell, we had less PD time than most districts that I know of for a very long time. We had it early release only at the high school, but then nowhere else. So, it wasn't happening. Yeah.
When you put in the early release during COVID and we talked about it, wasn't it at the elementary level, and I'm not sure, I don't remember the middle school, but wasn't some of this PD happening during the day where a sub or somebody would come into a classroom and the teacher would leave for a portion of the day and a group of them would try and get together?
Sometimes, well,
That's
that
it's a
happens
luxury
during
now.
PLCs,
Yeah.
which they do that during their, like if the kids are at specials, then
Yeah.
they have their PLC time. If when the students are, we don't get coverage necessarily for them, like a substitute,
somewhere
but
else.
the way the schedule works.
Pre-COVID, wasn't it more that way from what?
I
Yeah,
was
so-
only here.
I remember
no,
this
so
before
pre-
COVID, that's what.
So we did this for COVID because the teachers
Maybe at
needed to look
ECS.
at. No, we did not. They had PLC time.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I think the hard part for everyone to understand is there's professional learning communities that you're talking about students and their needs, not always necessarily their curricular, what you need to change about your instruction. You're talking about what the needs of the kids in front of you are. So that's a 45-minute period. So that you're talking about with 7 first-grade teachers. You're looking at data as a whole. You're analyzing that data. It's data teams or PLCs. We call them PLCs here. And you're making decisions on what you could do with those students. Basically, you pick a high leverage strategy. You implement it in your classroom. You look at the data again. You see how it works. That's what happens. Now, those high leverage strategies that you're choosing and looking at, those scientifically research-based strategies that you're implementing, you just don't come out of college knowing all of them, and they're not all in your toolbox, and they've changed. And things change as we learn more about research. So, for example, universal design for learning is how do you make the classroom accessible for every student without making it that way for every student, for students with special needs, for regular education students, for everyone. That's a whole different shift of thinking, and you have to have training. Then on top of that, we have curriculum changes in every subject area. Then on top of that, we're building a STEAM school. So we can't expect our teachers to walk into Cromwell Middle School, our new Cromwell Middle School, in 3 years and be able to teach project-based learning. When we have, it's a different way of teaching, interdisciplinary, project-based learning. If we don't start providing them with that professional development and changing our curriculum to match that now. So yes, it sounds like a lot of time, but when you're working with a lot of different learners, and to my point earlier is the social emotional learning component of kids, it has significantly, the need has increased. We need more resources and more time. So you are actually spending more time differentiating. That hasn't gone away. It's what we need in order for us to get where we need to be. And I've said this before. We read, and we could talk to you about this for 10 hours. When you look at schools in Asia, they have they go to school from like 7 to 1, 7 to 2, and then between like 7 to 1 usually, 1 and 4 is professional development every single day. It's professional learning, because we could put teachers in front of our kids, or we could put amazing teachers in front of our kids, and then it's quality versus quantity. And I understand the daycare issue. Like we get that's huge, and that's part of our society, right? We have to. It is what it is. It's part of the American society. But we need to have the best instructors in our classroom, and we're working on it. And it's going to take time. And the contract is what the contract is. I can only have them for a certain amount of hours after school. I can't change that. Not without. That's not true. We can change that with a huge impact, and that's called money. And that will cost us more than we could afford. I was explaining to Selena, to run one school day, this was last year, and everything has gone up. One school day, it's about $70,000 to hire everybody. So your food, your people, your everything, your buses, everything. So we can add one school day to the school year, and that's going to be a cost of at $70,000, and probably more now because of all the changes. So these are just things that I want you to think of. We could stick with the calendar we have. We can come back to the table and think of other things. But the reality of it is that our teachers and our administrators need this time right now. There's too many changes. And once that legislation is enacted, K through 2 is,
K through
3. And then we'll explain why we want to do 4 and 5 later. At the same time, to try to save money, because it actually behooves us to do it that way. There's an impact. There's an impact somewhere. Someone's going to be impacted. We could slow down the pace. That's not my cup of tea is instruction. You hired me as your superintendent because that's my strong point. It'll always be, and so is Dr. McLean. And so I'm going to try to move us all forward. And to the best of our ability. And this is the only way I can think of doing it that will have less of an impact on our budget, which we can't afford at this point.
And we do have the 183.
Yep.
Other districts don't
Anywhere
necessarily have 183.
Nope. So we're mandated by State Department of Education to have 180 days. Anywhere between 180 and above is a gift for kids. I wasn't here, and I'm sure Ms. DeTuno was here. Mr. Butwell may have been here. I don't even know how long this has been happening. But Cromwell, since I've been here, is 183. That is a gift. I am sure whoever fought for that 183 and the amount of money and time and effort that it took to get students in school for 183 days was very difficult, because it's very expensive, very costly. So yes, we lose the 8 hours. We don't want less instructional time, but we do have 183 student days where a lot of districts have 180, 181. There's many different ways of looking at this. Some districts have 190 teacher days. We have 187. We can't afford to pay teachers for 3 more days. We just can't. We can't afford it. So that's why it seems different in different districts, because it depends on, and I don't want to use the word value of education, but what do we want education to look like in Cromwell Public Schools for our students and for our staff?
And having that time, and I think I know the teachers feel this way too, like having larger chunks of time to do professional development is, the benefit to that is invaluable. Like having, like, just to be able to get in the zone and do something and get something accomplished is incredibly valuable. But again, when I put my mom hat on, I understand that it there are consequences to that too.
I think it was Catherine first.
So just to clarify, when, the board had asked that you go back and look at the number of hours, you looked at the number of professional development hours and not student hours. The professional development hours included what we call that PLC piece and everything else. And that is what we want to have and not what is required per contract or state mandate, correct? Or is this contract and state mandated hours?
We have hours that we have in our contract that we have, that teachers have to, but the way that it works is because of the state mandates, we then have to provide professional development in certain things, like the science of reading, for example. So we have to train our staff in a new reading program. And so that's sort of the way that it pans out is there's some legislation made and then professional development has to come in order to meet that legislation.
And they named the hours for paraprofessionals. It's 18 now, right? Teachers, I don't think there's a set amount of hours. They say you have to do this, and
Right.
this, and you have to do it and do it well.
Because it's a
and
contractual.
figure it out because it's local.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own local legislation.
And it has to happen during the contracted time.
Right.
That I understand. I don't have that's not my question. But when we were discussing earlier, because people have asked what happened before, why was it only at the high school? And that's because they were considered just PLC hours. And this was all pre-COVID where things were very different. And we had talked about this when you brought to us the 1 hour release early days. Those were teachers meeting during the school day. Because I remember my kids being at ECS and sometimes at WIS, but they would say, oh, the teacher isn't here during that time every week. They're gone from the classroom. There's somebody, so-and-so is in there. Usually it was the same teacher that came in. I don't know who they went to meet with, but the teachers would say, oh, it's our meeting time during the day. So, and I remember you saying we won't have them pulling out in the middle of the day anymore. They'll be with the classroom all day, which wasn't a good thing to do during the height of COVID, I should say. But just to get a better understanding of what we're looking at.
I think I understand. I know what you're talking about. I misunderstood. So during that time, so what was happening in Cromwell, there was PLC time built into the schedule for WIS, and the teachers were able to have specials teaching the students. So we didn't need subs.
Mm-hmm.
So the students were getting instructed in a different way by specialist teachers. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but I think I'm correct about WIS, right?
Right,
Okay.
and they have the science piece at
science
WIS,
piece that
which
we didn't have.
adds another layer, which is why at ECS we don't have as many specials to cover. So I bet you that's what the situation was.
Yeah, and I can have each principal correct me if I'm wrong, but at WIS, we never had to put subs in to cover because there was always specialist teachers because of the way the schedule was, and having that science component is huge. You have a whole other teacher for a special. Then you could bring PLCs together. ECS is very different. What happened at ECS was we got to the point where we needed to have PLC time and look at data, but they didn't have the time built into their schedule. So we were using building subs and whoever we could manage to grab here and there, which took the teacher away from the kids during the day. And at this point, we've figured out how to use pupil personnel staff, which are still teachers, to teach the social emotional learning piece. So that's happening throughout the day so that we don't have to have subs. I'm not going to say that it never happens where there isn't a sub, because God knows we've needed a lot of subs lately.
We don't have subs
We don't have subs anyway. Do we have to cancel? Sometimes we have to cancel. At the middle school, PLC time was always built into the day based on their schedule. And at the high school, it's still a struggle to have PLC time regularly, more often, even with the early hour delay. So basically, we've increased PLC time because of the need for PLC time because of the needs of our students. And then on top of that, there's professional learning, and for, you're learning about your students, and then there's professional growth for yourself so that you can meet the needs of your students. And
there's curriculum.
And then there's the whole curriculum component where, like I said, we could put people out in the trailer like used to happen a long time ago, but then the curriculum sits on the shelf and nobody looks at it and uses it. And that's not effective either. So that's what was happening. So you are right. We were pulling teachers for sure, but we've rearranged the schedules, and the early release has helped tremendously with that. Yes.
Just to clarify, because there have been many questions
Yeah.
about
Yeah, I
that.
forgot
People
about that
are
part.
confused because it was only at the high school. Well, your kid was having some disruption during the school
During the day,
day, which we're
yes.
trying to avoid by doing the option that we currently have and potentially
Yeah.
the new option that's in front of us, so.
And it used to, there was a time where you had subs that you had regularly too.
In the building, there are
And
building subs that
right,
just
and
were
you
there.
could, and you could train them really to take over that doesn't happen anymore. We're lucky we have we're lucky we have coverage and we're not splitting classes
Or
at
com-
this
yeah.
point. It's much more of a disruption and loss of instructional time and poor use of time if we were ever to go back to that model. At one point, about
I mean, even now,
8 to
we
10
pull
years ago, it
teachers
was
from
good.
PLC to cover classes because we need coverage all the time. You know, like it's not perfect now because we have children in classrooms that need supervision, and if there's people in PLC, then we'll pull them.
The
So,
hope is-
Dr. McLean, you've been doing this for a year or two with the 1 hour, and you have, I'm sure, a schedule of what you accomplished during those times. Do you find it's been effective, or do you think that it'd be much more effective to have the half day with the 2 hours?
I think it'll be much more effective to have the half days, just as, being able to sit down with a group of people and, by the time you kind of get your stuff out with an hour, you're packing up and, and so I think it'll be much more effective with the half days. We're doing it now because that's what we have. And, but I think there's so much more you can do with a larger chunk of time,
So were you getting done what you needed to get done, would you say, with the 1 hour, or not
I
as
mean,
much
we-
as you hoped?
Right. Well, I mean, we kind of get done what we
Yeah.
can get done in that time. The way that it's put together. I think, just in terms of quality of time, the chunks of time are better. But again, I understand the cons of that too. So,
Kelly had a question, I
Professional
think.
development calendar.
Yeah, if it's 2 hours for every half day that the teachers are getting, would we consider doing one full day of teacher development? Because that would
we
eliminate.
did talk about that too.
Then we have to make it the
Then we have
school
to
day.
make it up.
We
So-
do, well.
Yeah, well, then we're right.
But we have, and I might be misunderstanding, we have 183.
No, you're right.
So could we go to 182? To me, this half day it's really hard on the parents, but it's also kids are losing 8 hours of school. So if they're losing 8 hours of school, they're losing 8 hours of school. It's a day of school. And there's more disruption in a half day. I'd rather see them lose one full day than 4 half days. So I don't know if that would be considered, but I think that would be a more effective use of time.
We talked about that. There are a lot of, we would have to go back and bargain impact of the adults at this point because, so you have 183 days and you have 183 days of student days. If we went to, we'll just say the 1 day, that would mean only teachers really, and administrators, because we're salaried, whatever, would come to work. Every hourly employee then would not have a need to come to work. So we'd be taking away one workday from each person, which is now breaking their contract. So we would have to go back and collectively bargain with them, which at the end of the day, we're going to end up paying them for that day no matter what. So that's that could be what we want to do, and we pay people for basically not doing, you know what I mean?
Could give them some PD, no?
Yeah, except for that's going to cost us money. Yes, we can. We can give PD, but it will cost us money. It's costly. Yeah, all
Lori-
PD is costly. Nothing
Lori,
is for
sorry.
free.
I think I skipped you.
Yeah. So yes, that is, we talked about that. Carrie and I talked about it. I also caution because you give something up, you're never getting it back. You're never getting that 183 ever again. We'll never find a way to get it back. And I just think we're lucky to have that 183. But if that's something that we are willing to give up, I don't recommend it. I also don't want to put it, we'd have to actually give it up. We can't just put another day in like the middle or like a full day, right? Because then we'd have to make it up, and you can't do that either. And then it's 188 work days instead of 187 work days, and that complicates things too. everything is up in the air. I mean, I think at this point, this is up to you. The calendar really is up to you. You could make that decision. I just caution you to not decrease student days.
But the hours are going to be the same, right? It would still be 8 hours
No,
of time that the students are losing.
it's more than that. Can I just say?
Yeah,
what I
Lori,
wanted
go
to say?
ahead.
I misspoke earlier. Now I remember what I was. So we added 12 half days for a total of 16. So before we had 4, now we have 16. So we added 12. So 12 more half days times 3, that's how much they're losing on a half day, is 36 hours. But you had 25 hours over here. So they're really losing in total 11 hours. The students are losing 11 hours if you compare the two calendars.
33, isn't it? 25 plus the 8 hours? 33 versus 36. So if you add up all
I guess my.
purples and then all the half days.
So when you add up, if you pound up all the purples, it's 25.
There's
25 hours on.
We got this like 2 days ago.
So do you understand what I'm saying? I'm just a math person. So there's 25 hours on this side that the students lost. Over here, it's going to be it's 36 hours. So it's 11 hours different. So like Dipty's point earlier, that's what was bothering me, and I was not verbalizing it correctly. So I knew there was a gap. So I guess when this first came up, I thought that I was in favor of shifting it to half days if the students didn't lose time, but they are losing time. So I personally wouldn't vote in favor of this. So that's my opinion. So
Are we ready to take a vote on this, or do we want to do we have to do this tonight? I mean, we've already dragged it out to 2 meetings, but I want to make sure it's right.
We've dragged it out. It's really just for families so that they can start planning. We know we have to be here. We know we have to come to work. Families are asking for the calendar so they can plan vacation. We could go back and look at the other, I mean, it's pretty easy to tell you the difference between a 1 day. I mean, we could tell you that. But to go through and look at all the exact hours of what they would lose, we need to recalibrate. Like, we need to go back and have time to recalibrate. Unless you have a better solution of what you want us to look at, we could, or
we can go
we
back
could
to the
just
way
go
we're
back
doing
to
it
the way we
now.
were doing things,
Right.
which
Matt, were you going to say something?
Yeah, there's just a couple of kind of thoughts of summary here. I really like your idea. I think it's cost prohibitive. I think that's really ultimately the problem. I would like the idea of reducing students 1 day in school and using 1 entire day for PD. I think there's a lot of value there, but in the end, it will cost, and it's unfortunately money I don't think we have. I mean, we're freezing the budget now. It's already a problem. So the concept is awesome. And if it weren't for the money part, I would absolutely be in your corner on that. Really, when I look at this, it comes down to 2 things. Either the teachers having a solid 2 straight hours in PD is extremely valuable for their learning so that they are in the best position to educate our students. In whatever job you have to go to trainings, you have to learn new concepts, how they work, how to implement them. No matter what career you have, teaching is just one other career, you have to have those types of trainings. I totally see the idea that, with the 1 hours, only having the 1 hour, really the teachers are probably only accomplishing, and I'm speaking as a teacher who's been through this stuff, probably 45 minutes of actual PD during that time, because there is setup and takedown and, okay, everyone, time to quiet down, let's pull it together, because when you put a room of teachers together, they're just like any other student.
Yeah, they're calling a parent.
There's some
and they're late,
social,
it happens.
it's absolutely, and that's just part of the professional environment. So for me, it comes down to really 2 questions here. If we stay with the 1 hours, with the 1 hour, leaving at 1 hour ending, or ending at 1 hour early, is probably the correct way to say that. That's less effective for the instruction of the teachers, but it's better for the students, right? Because it's more hands-on in class time. So that one is better for teachers, worse for students. The other one, where we have the increased half days, is better for the teachers learning, but worse for the students and their families. So that's really ultimately what we're faced with here, is do we want to lean towards what's really better for the parents and the students? At the same time, the argument can be made, the better educated and prepared our teachers are, the better prepared they are to provide a higher quality with the less time that they now see the students. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the students would lose 8 hours. The teachers would actually lose 8 hours teaching the students. And teachers see that as lost time, right? They want to be teaching their students. But are they teaching at a higher quality with the time that they have? So I think that's really kind of what we're weighing here. And, you know, if we do take a vote on this, that's really what we're looking at is I think the 2-hour block is our teachers will be enabled over time, it won't be an immediate change, but over time, to provide higher quality instruction, but the kids will lose time, face time, in-class time with their students or with their teachers. And the parents will also have the difficulty of after-school care, you know, which we heard from public comments tonight. For specifically one population of student, that presents even greater challenges. So, you know, it's a lose-lose either way and a win-win either way. And I guess it's just a matter of how we decide to look at it. It was a terrible summary, I'm sorry.
No, it was helpful. I think with the exception of the month that has 3 half-day Wednesdays, I was okay with it. I thought, you know, originally I thought there were 2 months, but now I'm having a hard time seeing where the third, is it May?
Can I?
Oh, because it's a Friday.
Sorry.
Yes, sure, Jen.
Could we maybe compromise and maybe on those 2 months where we have the 3, do 2 so that we're giving back some student hours? Maybe find a
But
little
that
bit
May
of a
month
compromise.
sorry to interrupt you, but that May month, I think that's a holiday weekend, right? And that's why.
We backed it up
We
to
just
the holiday.
backed it up.
Yeah.
So I don't mind that one so much because I think that makes sense. But that January, 3 in January is kind of.
Yeah, I mean.
Maybe if we can
take
reduce
that
one of
we can
those
take-
days, we kind of split the difference on the hours. Sure.
It has nothing to do with the half days, but the second week of November, it just looks the way you guys have teacher conferences. It's a pretty crazy week with, it has, it looks like Veterans Day is on that Friday, but then they have teacher conferences on Tuesday, Wednesday, and then, or no, Wednesday, Thursday, and then, what's the 7th? Already a
Voting
work
day,
day.
so the kids
Yeah,
are-
so they
so
have
the kids are
voting,
out.
then 2 half days, and then Veterans Day. I just didn't know if
But
we
come to
are,
school on Veterans Day.
yeah, but if we're revising, I'm saying if we could just move. Is there a way to move the teacher conferences like a week later? It just seems like a busy week.
We had a lot of
Yeah,
talk
we
about
don't-
this.
No.
Yeah, and also you have to be careful with, per state statute, you have to make sure that your quarterlies end at a specific time. It doesn't make a huge deal for elementary, but secondary makes a big deal. Like you have to split them up, have it end as, you know. So
It is.
we talked
it is
about
a bad,
this.
It's like that stretch, and I think
It's
we
just
kind
a
of thought
bad-
like just one, like it's concentrated.
It's a we
rather
agree.
than spreading it out.
No matter what we do, it's like not that great. But we could change it if you. I mean, it's just not good.
Lori.
I just want to go back to that. I mean, we talked about this with the understanding that we wouldn't be losing student time, and that's not really what's proposed. So, what if you took away some of those half days so that you got it back to, so you didn't have 16? I'm just throwing an idea out there, just so you could still transition to the half day, but not as many of them, so that you get it down so that the numbers are equal, so they're not losing student time.
We can do that. I mean,
It's
that
just
doesn't
a
mean
po-
we're losing PD time. Yeah,
You
that
can get
Not
it to
losing-
an equal. 'Cause
What
you're
about just
giving up
one
11
half day?
Well, no, because what
hours.
we're compensating for is that time after school that the teachers are eating lunch, and so that now is being replaced with professional development time, as taking the professional development time as opposed to having the students released.
Right.
So it's a loss of PD time, which we can do. You know, like I'm
It
just
just-
saying that it is a loss of PD time doing that.
It just bothers me that there's 11 hours. It's 11 hours difference for
Yeah,
the two calendars,
because the
and
way the
that's
schedule
not
is. Yeah,
that's
that's
not
true.
when. when we had asked you to do that, it was with the understanding that the students weren't going to lose time. So 11 hours is a lot of time.
So what would be, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, if we try to make up all the lost student time in this half-day schedule, we're never going to get done what we plan to accomplish. So we stick with the one.
But it's not.
No, because
it's
we have
not
to- we
in
can't-
PD.
They can't.
Because of the way the contract is.
Because
like,
the
they
when
have
they're
to
eating,
eat lunch.
they can't be working. It's uninterrupted time. So while they're eating, they can't have PD. So I would say if we were going to do that, and I hear Lori completely, I
Mhm.
would say stick with the schedule on
Yeah.
the left, right? Because this is more professional development time. Their lunch is
And there's
built
no
in,
loss of-
and there's no, it's right. It's a little bit more hustling around. We make it work to the best of our ability. But we have to make sure that we provide our teachers with an uninterrupted hour lunch.
Does this new schedule on the right account for your assumption that we'll be implementing a new reading program? So if we weren't necessarily, because it's kind of up in the air, and we took some time away and then could
Well,
add it later.
Right. Well, what we're doing is we're taking. There's not necessarily more of it. It's just different because we're stopping the current reading curriculum
okay.
writing and replacing it with the science of reading professional development because that's what we were working on, but it's no longer relevant. So we stopped that and we're going to replace it with this. So it's not necessarily that there's more. It's just we're doing different things with that time.
Okay.
With very little leave time from the State Department.
Oh,
With
yeah.
very little
So
leave time.
we can't take anything off of the schedule on
Well,
the right then,
I
basically.
think-
we
I
take
th-
one half day away?
I think the months where
I mean,
you
I
said,
think it would be a benefit enough if we wanted to take, this is my personal opinion. I think if we wanted to take one half day away, I think the benefit of having those chunks of time would outweigh missing a half day. That's just personally, to me, I think that is an okay compromise.
So would anyone want to move toward that option? Take one of the half days away and move toward this calendar, or do we want to stick with the other calendar?
We're still missing 8 hours of student time.
Understood. I think it's a compromise. Jen?
I mean, I think I would want to eliminate 2 if we were going to do that.
But then,
Then you'd
yeah,
rather
then
have
we're
the
stuck
less
with the 1 hour schedule.
no, not necessarily if you eliminate 2.
Oh, I thought that's what
we were no. Lori was asking. We were talking about making it equal time,
Or
and that
eliminating 2
won't.
half days.
So if you eliminate 2.
No, because
That's
we
8.
were saying there's 11 hours.
Right.
Yeah.
If you eliminate 2, sorry.
Yeah.
If you eliminate 2, then you're making up 6 hours, so you're losing 5 in the end.
We're splitting the difference.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought I said that
So
originally.
in that case, I just want to make sure. Oh my God. Okay, hold on. My brain hurts. We've looked at this 500 times. So Carrie,
I
do you have
think
it
you
in
should
front of
take
you?
away
I
a
don't have
January
it.
and a May. There's 3 in
there's
January and 3 in
that's
May.
what my recommendation would be
So
to take.
January 24th.
No.
No, I would
What?
leave
It
maybe
is?
that one
That's
because
another-
people will like that one. People will.
January 24th?
24th is not a
Oh,
holiday.
January 24th?
No,
January-
the May one is backed up to Memorial Day.
I think January
Right,
24th
and we would
is
take
a
away
good one.
January 24th and the 22nd of May. Those are the 2 that I was
Yep.
thinking.
I have just a quick question before you pull the 22nd of May. There are the standardized AP exams that fall.
Those are the first 2 weeks of May.
Yeah. And we picked.
Yeah,
It all works
and
out.
we picked, they're in the morning then, before the kids get released from school?
No, there might be one on the 8th. Did
Yep.
you guys look at that?
So that's why I'm thinking, is the 8th really a good day?
I don't know. Andrew, did you? I don't know,
have
actually.
the
That's
schedule.
a good question. AP testing in 2023.
It's Calc, AB,
Are they in the morning?
noon start time.
Yeah, I mean, there would definitely be one that first week of May, or the second week of May. The May 8th one, that would be AP testing week after that.
And it would be in the morning, or would it be potentially in the afternoon?
There's an afternoon session.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they
So then that's the one we'd have to.
So we could switch, because otherwise we'd have 2 in 1 week. We don't want to do that. We would go to May 15. We would get rid of the 8th and have a full day. We'd go to May 15th for a half day. We'd get rid of the 22nd, and we'd keep the 24th. So the half days would be the 15th and the 24th that month. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
Neither one of these is ideal for everyone, unfortunately, and there's no way around that.
There never is. It's really hard.
Okay, would anyone like to make a motion on what we just talked about?
Get rid of the
Motion.
What
A
about-
motion to approve that
Motion
we
to
eliminate.
approve the reference D with eliminating those 2 Wednesdays.
Eliminate January 24th, and also,
8th and the 22nd.
Yep, and
Of May.
move the 8th to the 15th.
and add the 15th. Is there a second? All in favor? Opposed?
Opposed. I'm opposed.
Abstentions? Okay, motion carries. Calendar is approved. I'm sorry?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
I forgot.
how could we forget about Columbus Day? Was that it? Okay. We had some time to think about and do our own research, whether we wanted to update the calendar to reflect Indigenous Peoples Day or maintain Columbus Day. So I hope you've all had time to do that, and let's make a decision on this. Would anyone like to make a motion in either direction?
I'll make a motion to go to get rid of Columbus, Indigenous People Day.
Okay, is there a second to that? Okay, the motion is dead. Would anyone else like to make a motion? Okay, by Kelly, is there a second? All in favor? Opposed? Abstention, sure, by Jen. And by Catherine? Okay, motion carries. It will remain Columbus Day. Sure.
Oh, never mind. Those 2 blues look really similar to me.
Yeah, one's like, we ran out of colors. You're right.
Pink and red.
And looking at it.
Was that everything on the calendar that we had to change, discuss?
That was it.
Okay.
We're not discussing Juneteenth.
We don't need to, right?
Nope.
Because it's
No,
part
we're
of,
just gonna celebrate it.
Yeah.
okay.
Snow days.
All right, new business. Item A, brief overview of the Science of Reading curriculum legislation by Dr. McLean.
Everyone, do not let your blood boil with the State Department of Education, or where you, it is blood boiling, curdling actually. So Carrie's going to give you an update of where we stand. It's very important for you to understand. We thought we were going to be able to keep this at bay as a state. However, we are not. It is important for you to understand the large impact this will have financially and
Right, so
in
there's
other
2
ways.
pieces to it, really. In terms of financial implications, we have to implement a new reading screener, which we have now gotten a quote for, and it's, I think it's about $7,500. And we have been looking into curriculums, and as of now, it's looking like between $300 and $330 there to do a full implementation.
Yes. On a good day.
Yeah. We want to obviously, the legislation is for K-3. We want to obviously have a consistent reading program K through 5. We could stagger the implementation, which we may end up having to do, but that will cost us more in the long run because we'll have to provide professional development to 2 sets of teachers instead of 1. So if we trained all of the teachers at once, we would save on professional development costs. If we stagger it, it would cost more, but we'd be able to push it over a couple years. Though that's what our options are now. We're still looking at programming, and we're still getting quotes. We're hoping that we have materials that we've been looking through. You know, I've talked about this before. The speed of implementation on this is just completely unreasonable, but I don't see that we're going to have a choice in it. We're going to apply for the waiver to get the extension for the year, but like Dr. Macri said, next year we have to train our teachers because they can't just show up in September and teach a new reading program. And so we're going to have to get materials so that they can get professional development for next year for the following fall implementation of the reading program. We've been working with the consortium to the Middlesex Consortium to see if, you know, the districts that are in there involved with that, if we all decide on the same program, or if some of us do, then maybe we can save some costs there. In terms of professional development, so there's still questions, but I just wanted to make you aware of the enormous financial impact that this is having, and it's not just us. This is every district is going through this. I forget what the number is of districts that are using the programs, but it's a very small number. So most districts in the state are being, you know, faced with this. This is not the way I would do it, but it's legislation.
Any questions? Dipti?
Depends. And that's another like huge part, because just now, like, the teachers really like iReady, so we're going to take that away from them. And it's just the thought of doing that is, but some programs do have their own blended learning program. We would still need a benchmark assessment, but we may not use it as a personalized learning program. So that is potentially something that's on the table that it might replace it.
Can I just ask, like, how is it, like, essentially different from whatever program you choose from what you're doing now? Like, what are...
So right now we use the workshop model. Right now we use a workshop model.
With a lot.
They use the workshop model.
Yes.
But we have a.
We have
we've added-
foundations,
we've
right?
beefed it
We're
up a
just
lot.
not. There's much more phonemic awareness and kind of direct instruction for reading, and it's a big pedagogical shift, you know, as well as a curriculum shift, which is why really this should take some time to
We're not necessarily
unfold.
saying we agree with it. As a matter of fact, Carrie, myself, and Amy, who I'd like to say know a lot about this, this is the way we always taught.
Yeah, I don't disagree
we don't
with
disagree
the
but
legislation.
trying to shift a district that has not necessarily done it that way to becoming a district that's done it that way, when they just spent, I say they, this district before I got here 5 years ago, $500,000, maybe more, to go towards this workshop model, which I would have never allowed you to do.
either.
We would have never allowed you to do it, but it's here, and our teachers have been incredible with adapting to the changes so that it's more brain-based learning, right? Phonemic awareness it's just completely missing. We've lost the phonics piece, but we've brought it in.
Yeah,
Carrie's
we have
team brought it
pieces
in.
of it, not everything.
Right.
Even if we kept what we
Even if
had,
yeah.
there are still things that are missing from our curriculum that we are not doing, that we need to add to the curriculum.
So in the past, when the state has come up with a huge, like, you're implementing something that costs $500,000, they usually will let you prove to them that what you're doing will meet those requirements. We've done that millions of times. I feel like I did that for a full-time job for 5 years in the Alliance District. They're not bending on
No,
this.
and on this, it's really kind of circular logic, because so we could fill out this additional waiver that says, here, what we're doing meets all this criteria, or it could. But what they're requiring is data from the screener that nobody is using to prove that gaps are being closed. So it's sort of a waste of energy to we're going to do it, but to put the waiver forward, because already we don't have the assessment that they're looking for in order for us to provide the data to show that we're making progress. So the official waiver, Amy, I don't think it's come out yet. Oh.
No, I check it daily.
Yeah. We've been waiting. We have an older copy that we're working off of that we're just kind of doing our own audit of where we are. But it's going to change, and we're going to do the very best that we can to do this in the most fiscally responsible way, and to provide our teachers with the support that they need to make this effective. But not only us, but many districts are in a situation where this implementation is not, the timeline is not conducive to doing this well.
And speaking with some of my colleagues, I do what I'm told. I work for the State Department of Education. They sign off on my certificate. I am supposed to do what I'm told to do. Some of my colleagues are saying we are not budgeting for it. We can't. You're going to see the huge increase in our budget, and they're going to take it out of their budget, and they're going to see where everything lands. I need a job. Some of these people have been doing this for 35 years or more. It's a little different. But that's where we are at education with legislation. The legislators have way too much power over education, and they don't understand it. It's become a political platform for people to switch out things, and it's getting worse by the day. There are boards of ed who have gone up, I think, to the State Board of Education and lobbied against this. Like I said, CAPS is out there making huge waves, like a lawsuit kind of waves.
But it's worse. It seems like it could be worse than the financial cost, because we've been instructing our youngest students to learn to read in one way, and now we're going to be required to throw that away and have them use a completely different technique. So we're going to ask them to basically stop learning to read the way that we've been teaching you and now do this new way. So they're not going to have no foundation to do that. Like, you can't make a change that quickly. It needs to be gradual.
It's going to take time.
These kids are going to be shell-shocked.
The only thing, Matt, the only thing that we have as a saving grace is that you have pretty awesome curriculum people who have been doing this from the second we walked into the district, because Lucy Calkins we have never been a fan of Lucy Calkins. We came here and it became, you better become a fan of Lucy Calkins and then figure out how we're going to teach all the other stuff that kids need to know.
We didn't drink that Kool-Aid.
We didn't drink the Kool-Aid like a lot of people drank the Kool-Aid. We never drank the Kool-Aid. We still believed in phonics, phonemic awareness, fluency, vocabulary, all the true essentials of learning how to teach reading. So when we came here, the first thing Carrie and I did was almost cry and say, we have a lot of work to do. And our teachers have worked, honestly, when I say they have worked incredibly hard.
Yeah.
Incredibly hard to make the shifts slowly that we need to make that are aligned with what we need to do, except for we don't need a $330,000 program to make us do that. I'm pretty confident in Amy and Carrie's skill set and my big mouth, who's constantly making sure, but they know what they're doing. But we don't have a choice. So to answer your question, we're a little better off than we think in that respect, because we never drank the Lucy Calkins Kool-Aid in the first place.
We
and we
always
were
had
only
supplements.
a year. Yeah. And we were only a year
Just
out.
not
Like that
enough.
happened, and then we came in and we're like, oh no, we have to fix this now.
And we have made modifications to it, and we have added supplemental curriculum materials to it.
Assessments.
But it still doesn't check all of the marks that we need in order to follow this new model. And even if it did, the state is saying you have to have one of these 7 programs. So
right,
that's
the part
end of the discussion, is that we don't have that program and we need it.
So did that new program, does it mean less phonics for the kids?
More.
Or more phonics?
More.
So if you use Foundations, you can keep, no, you can't keep that
That's
either?
Foundations is not on the list
frustrating.
either.
Foundations isn't even on the list, and we have seen years. I mean, we have data from 2 different districts, and probably, just 2 that we've looked at, of an increase in reading ability for kids, especially K1 and 2, and it's not even on the list. So that's disheartening, because it makes you feel as if these book companies there's a deal going on here somewhere, and that's what's the frustrating piece of it, is that not everybody knows how to do it and do it well. I'm not going to say we're going to be great at it. It takes time. But I think we were on our way to doing it well without being assigned a basal reader and a program that says, here, you have to buy this. But if the state says it, we
And there
do,
are
then we
plenty
do.
of people fighting this fight. Like
Yeah,
even
it's-
just today, Dr. Macri sent me a survey from CAPS about, what is the cost going to be, and they're trying to survey districts and, make a case to the State Department that this is the fiscal implications of requiring something like this. And so there's still fight happening, but in the meantime, budget is now, right? Like we have to budget for
And
it
we have
now.
Attorney Ritter here this evening. I'm sure she can give you her feedback and how she feels about it, because Shipman and Goodwin has been making very good arguments about whether this is basically against the law to having this being pushed upon us with the help of CAT. They're helping us.
So there's arguments being
There's
made.
arguments
And,
being
and I don't know where the fight will land,
Land.
but I know that what is legislation now and budget season means that we have to be considering this right now.
And when would be a good time to maybe circle back on it, on the status of everything going on?
Every month.
Yeah, I can give you an update. I mean, I don't know that much will change. But I can still, tell you nothing has changed if you, just
No,
want
I
to
mean,
stay.
if there's something that is reportable, then we'll wait until then. But
Okay.
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 All right, thank you. All right, next we have Facilities Culinary Kitchen Update. And for that, we have our new employee, Melinda St. John, Director of Facilities. Is that on? It's a red light.
I want to sing when I get up here. I can't sing. For the culinary kitchen, as many of you probably know, this has been dragging on for a little bit of time. There were supply issues and raw materials and so forth, and I'm happy to say that tomorrow at 1 o'clock, the building inspector, health department, and the fire marshal are coming to do an inspection, so we should get our CO tomorrow.
All right.
Knock wood. So we're in
Great.
pretty good shape. Little nudging, and we're
Thank
good.
you.
Any questions?
Any questions about that?
But you really worked fast on that. Good job.
Thank you.
Well,
All set.
welcome, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more at future meetings on all of the work that you're doing for us. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to the Cromwell High School Program of Studies, reference E in your packet. And for that, we have Mr. Kuckel.
All right, good evening. Not too many changes, unlike last year's. We have the cover sheet here. The biggest changes I would say is that we added some items here. One thing is just clubs and activities that we offer at the high school. That came out of our parent advisory meeting as just we needed more ways to publicize to parents and students what we offer at the high school. So we do have all of our clubs and activities are in the program of studies as well as our career pathways programs. And the only noticeable removal would be 2 ECE courses, UConn Stats and UConn Individual and Family Development. And again, those courses are really based on each individual teacher qualification. So as you lose teachers with that explicit skill set, then you can no longer offer the course. It is different than AP. AP can be taught by essentially anybody with the proper certification, whereas ECE is a little bit more complicated. But other than that, those were the main additions, and we did revise the Connecticut Automatic Admissions Program language in there. But other than that, it would look pretty similar to last year's, where we had a lot of changes.
So that could be added back in. Should we
Yes.
gain a teacher that
Yep.
has that
Yep.
credential?
And with ECE classes, yes, we can have those can be offered at many different points, assuming we have teachers with the right certification on that.
Are there any other questions, Jen?
You know, I love a program of studies.
I know,
That's
yes.
my fave. So, okay, just a couple things I noticed. Just go through, and maybe this is for a reason, but grade levels missing on some of these, and course level. I noticed in like the music department, there was some intro to theater.
What page are you on, Jen?
So page 34, 35, 36. Like if you look at guitar is a good example. There's no grade level or course level listed.
Oh, yes, okay.
So there was a few of those. So just go through all of it because I noticed it in a a few other areas too. And then just one question about course levels. I think last year, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you had mentioned that electives were all going to be changed to level 1.
Yes.
Is there a reason why some of the art ones are still level 2?
Shouldn't be. They should all be level 1 in there. But yeah, I can make those changes. Those should all be level 1. And then on 16 and 17, all the proper levels are indicated in terms of what level each class is. So that is like your go-to, but we will update the rest so that way they reflect the same changes. But with art, they're all level 1, and then you have your honors class, which is AP 2D, art and design. But the other ones, yeah, we can make those edits in there before we go public.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Oh,
Jen.
and I'm, as always, impressed by how many classes we have for such a small school. It's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you,
Perfect.
Jen, for noticing those.
Yep.
I can barely see it. All right, so new business item D, new club, Cromwell Middle School Unity Club, reference F in your packet. And do we have, oh, Mr. Glowa, right? Is his name?
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
All right, so I know I'm the guy who usually spends a lot of time talking, even though I say I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking, but I promise this time I will, because both my kids are at home with possibly RSV. So I told my wife that I'd be out for milk, so you can all think of some excuse for when I come back 2 hours later after our calendar discussion. So,
Oh my goodness.
Unity Club. Following in the steps of the high school program. So Unity Club is really a twofold program, which is essentially creating a safe space for all students. So it's mainly focusing on providing equity to our students in a safe space where they can come and feel like they're not the only ones in the school who are facing issues within and without of the community. It helps build confidence within themselves. And we're also, the second approach is really focusing on action projects for ways that we can improve the school's sense of equity. Currently, we're looking at something called the Cromwell Closet, which would provide clothing for students who do not have relatively access to clothing, and looking for exchange programs with other schools, because for all the parents in here, I'm sure if you ever saw the Lost and Found at the schools, it is completely overwhelmed and loaded. And so instead of having our clothes be reused for the Cromwell Closet, instead exchanging with another school, so that way when a kid's walking down the hallway, they're not like, oh, you're wearing my sweatshirt, but it's a completely different school. So we can exchange those, and that way, like, everyone can have access to more clothes. We are also looking for just, oh my gosh, I forgot our other big program, our action project. I lost it. It's gone. But I promise it was amazing. Yeah. So essentially, like, it's really following in the footsteps of the high school program. The middle school program is just kind of like a continuation, a bridge. That's the other thing.
It would come to you, I knew
Mentorship
it.
programs. So working with our ECS and WIS compadres over here, having connections between our equity club coming down to the lower levels to provide a mentorship program for the little ones. So yeah.
And
that's
will
all
you
our
be
goal.
also having the high school students come down to
Yes, yes,
lead
yeah.
the middle school?
So actually, the kind of founders of the Equity Club at the middle school are actually, even though they're freshmen, they're actually the presidents of the Equity Club at the high school. So
Okay.
We've already been in communication with each other, and so we're looking to bridge our connections.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Is this something we need to approve tonight? It's not an action, but
Actually, you just have to, all right, let me see. Teacher, Board of Education must approve. I'm sorry, I didn't even realize that yet. You must approve it before the club activity is actually implemented. Oh, geez, can we amend?
So,
Weber?
Jessica, can I add an action item?
I didn't even realize this.
In the middle of a meeting?
Attorney Ritter,
Can I
we
add an
action
action
that?
item in the middle of a
I
meeting?
didn't realize we needed.
Okay.
Motion to add the agenda item to.
Second,
approve
all in
the club.
favor?
I didn't.
Opposed,
Aye.
abstention, motion carries. And
I just had one comment. You can tell your wife that the store was out of milk. You had to stop at a local farm and harvest it yourself.
Milk it, yes, yes. Good. I like it. Good.
And he will do that. Get himself in big trouble.
It will not be believed, but I will say it.
so now that we have a motion to add it, I think I need to then just restate it that we need an action to create a new club, the Cromwell Middle School Unity Club. Would that be right? Okay, motion from Catherine, second from Lori. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you very
Don't
much,
forget the
everyone.
milk. Do not forget the milk.
I will. Oh, ooh, good, yes.
All right. Item E, approval of minutes and motions from our November 15th regular meeting. Reference G. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
I heard Catherine. I saw Alan. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Informational Human Resources Personnel Activity. Reference H. Any questions on that? Yes, sure.
Sure. I would just like to say thank you. We have Claire Hatfield, who was on last month's agenda. It was as a resignation, but we confirmed it's a retirement. She is going to be retiring after being with the district and at many schools for 7 years as an administrative assistant. We wish her well. Her husband just retired as well. They have a little baby on the way. I know her, can you tell? So I'm excited, extremely excited for her to start on this adventure ahead of her. But we thank her for all of her service, and we will definitely miss her. I asked her if she'll come back and sub for us, and she says, no, not right now, but she might change her mind in the future. So we wish Claire Hatfield well, and especially miss her at graduation. And then Mr. Owen Watson, who has been with the district for 17 years. And Mr. Watson is retiring as well. And incredibly excited for him as he says he's going to pursue moving back to where he was born, on an island. So we are all very jealous of him.
Nice.
It sounds beautiful. But we wish him the very best and thank you for his 17 years of service to Cromwell Public Schools as well.
Yes, on behalf of the board, we also thank both of our retirees. It's amazing, and wish them the best in their retirement. I had one question. I noticed in the vacancies it says special education teacher for ECS, and then it says hired outside contractor because of no applications. What does that mean? Is that a sub-agency
I'll let Michelle.
coming in?
So that means basically we receive no applications from the outside or internal. So we sometimes go through reg, whether it's CREC, ACES, EastCon, and we hire one. It's an outside contractor that will come in, and we do that with a lot of different positions that we're not able to fill. Most of the time it's long-term sub positions. This is the first time that we were not able to find someone. We've been pretty lucky, but we still have the position up. And we hope that someone will eventually apply for it.
But this person will be in place until that time?
Correct.
Happens? Okay. Thank you. Any other questions while Michelle's up there? Lori?
There's also the position of supervisor of special education, and it says district grant funded. What exactly is that?
That is a current position we have now, and the person that was in this position actually decided to go back into the classroom. So we have it empty. We have posted, we have not posted the position as of yet. It was a grant funded or a funded position only till June 30th. So we are holding off, but we would like to post it.
And what building was that?
It's
at?
district-wide. The supervisor of special ed is district-wide.
So, okay, so it's not, I know we hired, oh gosh.
We don't want to probably
Yeah.
say any names right now, but.
No.
No, I'm not saying anything that's not, we had Jessica Resort that we hired. So is this another supervisor?
No, it's a personnel matter, and is it okay? Yes. Jess loves teaching, and she wants to go back to the classroom, and we wish her well. We can't thank her enough for everything she has done and helped us out during a very difficult time, and she's going to continue to help us but a position opened, a special education teaching position opened where she started, and she'd like to go back to her roots. And I think there's some days I'd like to be a grade 4 teacher again too. So I completely understand.
Well, thank you for all that you did in that position, and best of luck to you.
So I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I didn't realize it was you. I thought it was, that's why I was asking, is this another position? So thank you so much for everything.
Okay. Kelly.
How many math interventionists do we currently have at WIS? Because I see 2 positions now need to be filled. So who do we have once this last person leaves? Do we still have math interventionists? Okay. So does that mean less kids would get it available right now until these get... Okay.
Oh, sorry. Is your mic on?
No, sorry. The labor market is very difficult right now. So we have been very lucky in the past, but I definitely see the applications declining. It's been a very difficult time, and I know this is something that we always say. It's not just our district; it's other districts. But I mean, it's all over. You see it in every industry right now. It's hard to find help, and we are starting to feel it in Cromwell. Unfortunately, some of the positions that were part-time, that were either educators that might have decided to go home and have a family and wanted to work part-time, or stay-at-home parents, or someone who has retired, they're just not coming back into the workforce. So we do see that labor market declining. I'm hoping over time it will change.
Those were 2 part-time positions?
Correct.
So we wouldn't want to look to make that. Do you think it would be more appealing if it were a full-time position?
It would definitely be more appealing, but it affects your funding, because when you go over 30 hours, you have to offer benefits.
Right.
So it's because it's a grant-funded position. We're only allotted so much of a dollar amount, and that those hours are allotted.
Okay.
So we're very careful about, the hours.
Okay.
In
Fair
a perfect world, we would have a certified teacher providing intervention in a certified teaching position, which would, by the time you pay for benefits and salaries, we've been lucky in the education world for a very long time, especially with elementary, because so many of us, including myself, I had to wait a half a year before I got hired, and I prayed every single day that I would get a job. That's not the case anymore. Everyone is working, and teachers who may be doing intervention or long-term subbing, we pick them up very quickly as full-time positions. This is only the start of it. I think the next few years are going to be really difficult in education.
Any other questions? Matt?
The supervisor of special education is, I know that it's grant funded. Is it fully grant funded, or do we pay a portion?
No, right now, so this is a conversation I was going to have with you during budget session. We are posting it as a, for the rest of the year, because that's what we agree to as a board. We cannot go without a supervisor of special education. With CT SEDS and all of the mandates that we have through the State Department of Education, and just things that have changed over time, and especially over the last 2 years, we cannot do, the director cannot do the job on her own. So we are going to need to look at the hard reality of needing a supervisor of special education. We had money, grant money, because of, COVID. And we've used all that money. It's gone. So we will be putting it in the LEA, and we'll have that conversation during budget season. I feel that it's unfair to basically do that to anyone right now, because the truth is we voted on a budget. This is what you voted on. You have a right to the administrative positions. I can come to you and say, we need to look for some, and I might come to you and say, no one applied. It's only a 6 month position. No one's going to leave their district or leave their position if they know it's not going to be permanent, so we don't have anybody. So I may be coming to you with that cry. But right now, we're going to try and see if there's anybody who's interested in a 6-month position, and we'll see what we get. We will post it the way it is. We have to give it a shot for financial purposes only.
And in the meantime, Sari's on her own.
She's on her own. With all of us pitching in and helping, I know more about transportation than I've ever wanted to know in my entire life. Michelle knows more about what I have to do. Carrie knows more about politics than she's ever wanted to know. We are all doing the best that we absolutely can with doing more than we have to, and that's what's happening. Sari will not be able to manage it. A lot of the things that we've been doing that are positive, multi-tiered systems of support, so SRBI, where special education and regular education work very closely together, that's going to take a step back. And we were making some great progress. So no, Sari cannot do it alone. We need someone else, and I need more money, and we don't have any. And that's the bottom line in a nutshell.
Okay. Any other questions on that report? All right. Thank you, Michelle. Next, informational principal reports, reference I, J, K, and L. Any questions on those?
Mistake. We do have one mistake, Alan, but we caught it. We do have a tuition student at CMS, so that 0 should actually be 1. In reference J, we have 1 student tuitioning in from another district, and hopefully we have another one that's very interested, and so we may end up having 2 in the future. And they pay full tuition, which is a little over $16,000 to attend Cromwell Public Schools.
Has that ever happened?
No, it's a gift. Isn't it great? No, I'm kidding. It has happened where other districts, for certain reasons of something that may be happening with a student, will tuition into another district through litigious situation, and the school district pays for it. We have never had a family come to us and say, we would like to enroll. We've had people come, but then when they find out how much it is, they say, well, they could send their kid to a private school for less money. However, people want the diversity. People want the access to the programming that we have. And for a small district, we do have access to a lot of programming, and it's very appealing. So right now we do have 1 student tuitioning in, and we have had quite a few people ask, but we finally have our 1. The parents pay for it. Yes. And yes. Yeah. We're awesome. We're worth the $16,000. I'm kidding.
How much is it?
It's about, I think right now tuition is $16,223. That's off the top of my head, but I don't know if that's exact.
Yeah, we
Very
did that the
close.
last meeting. That's approximate.
Yeah, it's approximate.
All right. Are we ready to move on to the policies? Second read. A, second read and possible approval, physical restraint and seclusion of students and use of exclusionary timeout, Series 5000, policy from Shipman, reference M. This has gone through the policy committee and came to us at first read. Now it's on for second read. Is there a motion to approve it or any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? And it is approved. And item B, second read and possible approval, policy regarding student use of the district's computer systems and internet safety, Series 5000, policy from Shipman, reference N. Any questions? Is there a motion to approve? Lori, second Jen, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Those policies are both approved. And then we have some on for first read, items A through F. Are there any questions on any of those for the first read? We could take them individually if you'd like, but we will also have a chance for a second read. Who does? Oh, I'm sorry.
Looking at reference O. It's the use of commercially or home-produced video recordings by teachers as instructional.
Mhm.
And on I read it a couple times. It looks pretty good. The only thing I would 8 was changed to item 8 was changed to item 7 on it, and it says administrators must approve video use, and it's crossed out and says when deemed appropriate. That's fine, but do we want to have teachers just make administrators aware if they're using materials that aren't commonly used? I'm just thinking, I would hate to have a teacher use something that they think is totally fine, then get a bunch of parent complaints, and then the administrator didn't know what was happening. And
We had a long discussion about this in policy, and basically teachers, we felt, use so many different sources all the time, it would be really excessive to submit everything to administration. Is that everyone else's recollection? So that was kind of the compromise there.
I
Instead
trust our
of in all
teachers' judgment. I
circumstances.
just, sometimes even the best judgment is second guessed by others.
So when,
To share something, and it is difficult, especially today, because we use things off of everything, and so sometimes there's ads, and you don't know what the ads are going to be. So really previewing it, and we have conversations with teachers, especially new teachers. It could be anybody, but so does the teachers union has those conversations with them as well, of being very careful. But you're right, we've thought about that.
Ad nauseum.
Ad nauseum, yes.
all right, no other questions on the second read policies? Then we'll move on to board committee reports. Policy committee, we have reference U, which are the meeting minutes. And then facilities and technology, we have none. Topics for future agendas and possible action to approve additional topics. Does anyone have anything they would like to have put on an agenda in the future? Or anything that you do, Dr. Macri? No? Okay. Then we'll just go around quickly, and then we do have an executive session. So we'll go around, and if there are any comments, updates, or announcements, we'll start with Kelly this time. Dipti, Kelly, Catherine, Enza, Lori. No, everyone's all talked out. Okay. Then I hope I read this correctly. Let me get my notes out. All right, so is there a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing records of strategy from the teachers' contract negotiations, as well as discuss and take possible action on the teacher's successor contract for the 2023 through 2026?
And no, I'm sorry, and just invite
Oh, right.
Michelle for the teacher negotiations.
Mhm.
Dan
Jessica.
for DACO. Dan Burke for
Mhm.
DACO contract. And Carrie for curriculum, and Jessica Ritter. Sorry.
Okay.
I forgot to tell you all that.
And the third item is executive session to discuss an attorney-client privilege memorandum that discusses the options available and possible action to the board regarding its transportation agreement, and an executive session for the purpose of discussion concerning an attorney-client communication regarding steps for addressing a parental request under board policies 6114 and 6161 proposed for executive session. And invited into those would be Michelle DeMoro, Ann Burke, Carrie McLean. Sorry?
Do they sit for all of them?
Do you want them
Or
in
just
for just certain ones?
Theirs and then leave.
Okay.
I think it's okay.
Jessica Ritter and Dr. Macri. So the first that will be, we would need Michelle for the first item. Just Michelle and Dr. Macri, first and second item. And then we'll have someone go out and get the next. Okay. So is there a motion to approve the executive session? Dipti, second. Matt, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? We are now in I'll hand it to you when I need you to read that motion, yeah. Oh, are we all set? Thank you. Okay, we are now out, oh, can I have a motion to come out of executive session? I heard Alan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We are back in at 10:37. Public session. We need to add a new action item. So would anyone like to make the motion to, let's see. We have an action regarding a parent request under policy 6161.1 and 6144.1. Would anyone like to make that motion? Kelly? Alan? Are you writing that down?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, the new agenda item is added. Next, I'll hand this to you now. Okay.
What do I have to read?
I think we need to do the teachers one first. One second. The teachers. Do you have the teachers? Where did that go? Too many papers. Thank you. It's not the motion. Oh, here it is. It's on the back. Yep. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the tentative agreement between the teachers union and the board for a successor contract 2023 through 2026? Was that Dipty? Second? By Jen. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries and it is approved. There's the third one.
Here?
Number 2.
Number 2, okay.
Even though it's 3.
Is it a motion or a move?
You're going to make the motion.
Okay, a motion, move that the board authorizes the board chair to respond in collaboration with legal counsel to the parents' request under policies 6161.1 and 6144.1 in a manner consistent with the terms discussed in executive session. Is there a motion? Second? All right. So motion by Matt, second by Alan. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Thank you. And then lastly, regarding the DATCO contract, is there a motion to authorize the superintendent to negotiate a contract for a period of 5 years? By Jen, second by Kelly. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Motion to adjourn?
And is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Kelly? Is there a second?
Motion.
Jen, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?